Iran's higher education and science, which is under fire. Now, of course, you have heard, I don't have to tell you, the barbarians at Iran's gates who plan to send it to the Stone Age target not only its physical infrastructure of bridges, refineries, power plants, but also its universities, research institutions, and hospitals. Now, according to reports, at least 30 universities have been attacked and damaged since the war began. More than 600 schools and educational institutions have been struck. So the message is quite unmistakable that the aim is not merely military defeat, but the systematic degradation of Iran's capacity to think, innovate, and rebuild. Now, these, I'm kind of skipping over because I have a longer lecture, but my time is limited. Iran's engagement with science is rooted in one of the world's longest intellectual traditions. Everyone's heard of Al-Khwarizmi, who gave us algebra, or Ibn Sina, whose canon of medicine served as the standard European medical text for 6 centuries. 1979 Islamic Revolution transformed the political order in Iran, but did not extinguish its commitment to education and science. So after there was a period of disruption, but then again, it started up. What is remarkable is that through this period, the gains that were made in Iran. You know, before the revolution, Iran had approximately 170,000 university students, you know, in 223 higher education institutions. Today, despite decades of crippling sanctions and periods of severe economic contraction, the country has more than 4 million undergraduates, nearly 860,000 graduate students, and over 190,000 doctoral students. And the big thing has been, of course, the literacy rates. Adult literacy is between 93 and 94%. Female literacy, which was below 35% in 76, now stands at 85%. Women comprise nearly 50% of the students in secondary and tertiary education. Now, of course, we know that there are specific women's issues in relation to Iran, the restrictions under which many Iranian women function. But the fact is that education has been a major opportunity for them, and which they have taken advantage of. Now, growth in research output has been quite remarkable. Before the revolution, Iran ranked 39th worldwide in the number of scientific publications indexed by Scopus. By 2023, it had climbed to 15. Now, Iran's science and technology output grew at 11 times the world average in 2009 and 10. This is according to a data company. According to the Times Higher Education, its total output grew by approximately 340,000% between 1970 and 2008. So it lifted its share of global scientific production from virtually negligible, to over 1%. So this has carried on. Global Innovation Index, again, has shown how Iran has done very well. Now, the pillars of Iran's science are the key fields of achievement. Iran's scientific are concentrated in a set of high impact and which are often dual use. And the problem is almost any technology is dual use, and this is the excuse that is often given by Israel and the US in attacking some of these areas. So one of the areas is nanotechnology. Iran is perhaps one of the world's leaders in nanotechnology. The second is biotechnology and pharmaceuticals. During COVID-19, Iran developed and manufactured its own vaccine. At a time of, when there was supply issues. Sinagen, established in 1992, won the Biotechnology Asia Innovation Award and became one of the pioneering biotechnology companies. Tawfiq Daru Research and Engineering Company was struck by Israeli-US attacks in March 31st, was a major producer of active pharmaceutical ingredients, including anti-cancer, anesthetic, cardiovascular drugs. Now, this is very interesting because this company, which was struck, was a major competitor of an Israeli company called Teva Pharmaceuticals for multiple sclerosis drugs. So you can see out here that that kind of commercial considerations have also entered into the attacks that have taken place. Iran's nuclear program, of course, is well known. They have mastered the nuclear cycle. I don't have to detail that. In aerospace and space technology, Iran broke the monopoly of established spacefaring nation by developing its own satellite launch capability, which is quite remarkable. Iran is a nation of about 90 million people. Its Chabahar Space Center, under the development of the country's country's southeastern coast, was designed to support launches into the geostationary orbit. So this is again, Iran is perhaps the only Muslim country which has all this capability. So Iran plans to launch its own astronauts into space by 2029 using its own craft. AI represents the most recent frontier for Iran's scientific ambition. And they had established a national AI organization. I will talk about the Sharif University later, but this has been working on training AI models in Persian for 2 years, serving hundreds of companies and operating a high-performance computing center. Now, the attack on this Sharif University on April 6th destroyed the computing infrastructure. So this is again something which was a very carefully selected target. This computing infrastructure has nothing to do with war and that kind of stuff. This supports research on a broad field. Iran's knowledge-based economy has grown to encompass nearly 10,000 knowledge-based firms operating within 33 science and technology parks. In fiscal year 2019, approximately 5,000 Iranian knowledge-based companies sold 28 billion worth of products. Now, if you look at the anatomy of the assault, you see, the targeting of Iran's educational and research institution follows a pattern that became evident. By April 2026, the minister, just yesterday in New York Times, I saw that the Iranian Committee of the Red Cross had said that 763 schools have been targeted, 316 health centers. And the NYT has actually got pictures and verified, 22 schools and 17 health facilities. They've actually verified some of this. So now, they have the famous attack, the infamous attack, I should say, was on that Shajere Tayyabia Elementary School in Minab, where 175 children were killed. The Iran University of Science and Technology was attacked. This is Iran's first engineering institution, founded in 1929. The Isfahan University of Technology was hit on mid-March, and again in March 28, 29. The faculty of pharmacy at Shiraz University was struck. So, you can say physics. The problem is that the Israelis kind of link in the sense that these people who are doing physics, they are involved in the nuclear. And, of course, infamously, something like 50, 60 Iranian scientists have been assassinated since last year, which included the June-July attacks. This Tawfiq Daru, of course, I've already told you, this was the major producer of drugs. Daro Baksh, the pharmaceutical factory, a hub for antibiotics, cardiac drugs, again was struck. So which actually there's no military logic. And the WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus publicly condemned the attack on the Pasteur Institute in Tehran. Pasteur Institute was set up in 1929. And of course, the most internationally visible attack was on the Sharif University, which is known as Iran's MIT. Sharif is, the foremost science and engineering university, whose alumni include Maryam Mirazkhani, the first woman in history to receive a Fields Medal. Now, Miriam, of course, has unfortunately passed away since then, but she is the first woman to have received a Fields Medal. and after studying in that university. The attack destroyed multiple buildings, and as I said, the high-performance computing center. I won't go into the international humanitarian law issue because, I mean, it's very obvious that there has been a widespread, these attacks. There has been the international humanitarian law, the Geneva Protocol, the Geneva Conventions, the Hague Conventions, the additional protocols, all of these have been thrown to the wind. Trump's explicit threat to bomb Iran back to the Stone Age by hitting power plants, bridges, and his boast that it would take Iran 100 years to rebuild the war, if the war continued, make that strategic logic quite transparent. The destruction of an unfinished bridge, that bridge that was bombed, which was, you've seen the pictures of, the bridge was not operational. So it had no military function. It was an unfinished bridge, and that itself was bombed. So it was a demonstrative act. Now, what cannot be bombed? Long before the current war, Iran's scientific community had been conducting its work under conditions of severe constraints. International sanctions had restricted access to global journals, prevented attendance at international conferences, cut off scientific equipment and reagents, and choked research funding. And of course, the most damaging was on the top institutions, Sharif University, has students which have gone to MIT, Caltech, Stanford, Cambridge in disproportionate numbers. But this has only promoted Iranian self-reliance. The Islamic Republic's record on academic freedom, treatment of dissidents, and suppression of student protests, of course, is deeply reprehensible. And the campuses now being bombed were recently actually sites of anti-government protests. So when they say regime change and all this, we don't know what they're really talking about, because these Sharif University, for example, is a prominent site of protest, and that has been bombed. See? Now, Iran's scientific and educational achievement represent one of the most remarkable stories of knowledge building under adversity in the modern era. As I said, from 170,000 universities, 170,000 students at the time of the revolution, it has built a system educating 4 million. From 39th in global scientific publication, it has risen to 15th. It has achieved pharmaceutical self-sufficiency, built an indigenous nuclear fuel cycle, placed satellites in orbit. Okay, I'm just concluding. Trained engineers who populate the world's greatest research institutions, and this was accomplished without sustained access to the global scientific infrastructure in other countries. What bombs cannot stop is knowledge that exists in the minds of the Iranians. The accumulated intellectual capital of 4 decades of investment in education, research, and science is not stored in a single building, any single laboratory or any single institution. It is distributed amongst the millions of trained minds inside Iran and in the Iranian diaspora around the world, who carry the knowledge, the skills, the scientific culture that no aerial bombardment can erase. The real question is not whether Iran's capacity can be destroyed. It cannot. The real question is what kind of an Iran emerges, when the shooting stops, and whether the destruction of its research infrastructure accelerates or retards the progress of political and social transformation that its own citizens have repeatedly demanded. The barbarians may wreak their destruction, but as the first vice president of Iran observed from a bombed campus, the true fortress is the will of the scholars. So I'll just conclude here. Thank you.
Thank you, Manoj.